me now, CNN legal analyst Shanlon Wu, who is also a former federal prosecutor. All right, good to see you. So, just a few days ago, the New York Times reported that John Bolton says he was asked by the president to get involved in the Ukraine probe and asked back in May. He said that in his manuscript. So does the House have an obligation to subpoena Bolton now that the Senate has refused to call witnesses?
Oh, absolutely. I think they have an obligation. It's not a legal obligation, of course, but I mean, it's part of their continuing inquiry into what happened. And Bolton's kind of like asking for them to take that step. Now, I think there will quickly be a bunch of legal challenges. The White House will continue to try to delay a lot, but it makes perfect sense for them to continue this.
Meaning saying like executive privilege, but did the White House kind of lose out on that whole executive privilege thing because the president tweets about it, he's talked about it openly, commented about John Bolton, etc.?
I think they ultimately do lose on it, but in the short term they'll win because they'll get to try to bring that to the courts. And the courts generally are cautious about looking at a waiver of privilege too widely. No question there's arguments the president has waived it, but the court's going to be careful about construing that waiver.
Okay, so how will closing arguments differ from what the House managers, White House legal team has already stated, Friday and even, before the whole vote on witnesses?
I think they will differ in that the House managers now know what the defense is. So if you're a good trial lawyer, and Schiff is proving to be a very good trial lawyer, you can really put the burden back on the other side because you know what their arguments are. So, for example, the Trump team likes to talk a lot about how this is not a bipartisan effort and that's why it should fail. Easily put that back on them by saying you're going to hear from them that they're complaining about the lack of bipartisanship, and they can change that anytime they want. So that's the sort of thing you can do because you already know what their arguments are going to be.
All right, the president is looking for exoneration. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi had said a while back, impeachment is permanent even if the U.S. Senate, acquits. So what about this drip of, emails, documents? Will any of that potentially impact any other legal challenges up ahead?
I think it is going to impact a lot of the legal challenges, although basically all the president has left in terms of his legal defenses are going to be this testimonial absolute immunity, which is going to fail, and then the executive privilege. The problem for him on exoneration is unlike in the criminal trial, because this is where this analogy breaks down. When the criminal trial is done, it's done. And you can say there's still a stain on your reputation, but there's double jeopardy. They can't come after you again. They won't necessarily come after him again in terms of impeachment, but this constant drip, death by a thousand cuts, more and more damaging information coming out is going to be very bad for him and the Senate Republicans in the political arena, which is really what their ultimate jury is.
All right, Shan Wu, and of course, the Mueller report had already spawned investigations that are in other jurisdictions, so we'll see what may be ahead in this case as well. Shan Wu, thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome.
All right.